The Republican Party must be purged. It must not be allowed, like the Confederacy was, to live on with its own lost cause. Check it out, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the Thom Hartmann Program.
Like the Nazis and the fascists, that would be Hitler's Nazis and Mussolini's fascists, the Republican Party must be purged. And it must not be allowed to live on with its own lost cause like the Confederacy did. And, you know, I lay this right out. President Joe Biden has basically stopped negotiating with Republicans. He had some Republicans over to the White House yesterday and said, well, okay, here's my package. What do you think? And this morning on I don't recall if it was NPR or CNN, I heard, I'm pretty sure it was CNN, heard Roger Wicker, the Republican senator from Louisiana, saying, well, you know, Biden's $600 billion infrastructure package. And I'm like, what? What happened to the $2.1 trillion? Oh, the Republicans are trying to reinvent it. I see. Now I get it. So, but, you know, bottom line, Joe Biden has largely said, okay, you know, we're not going to negotiate with these people anymore. And the reason why, and, you know, of course, Biden hasn't said this, but I think it's becoming fairly obvious, the Republican Party is no longer a legitimate political party. It's just not. In fact, there's this group, it's called the Global Party Survey, globalpartysurvey.com or .org. I don't recall which, but it's right out there. Some work done at Harvard and in the U.S. and Sydney University in Australia. And the researchers note, first of all, they drew on a survey data from 1,800 party and election experts, 21 core items, to estimate key ideological values, issue positions, and populist rhetoric. And they examined 1,127 political parties in 170 countries. And what they found was that the Democratic Party is kind of right solidly in the norm for democracies. The Democratic Party functions much like its counterparts in Canada or Germany or France or England or, you know, whatever it may be. But the Republican Party, today's modern Republican Party in the United States, it is most similar to Hungary's Fidesz party or Turkey's AKP party or Poland's SIP or PIS party, excuse me. And all three are fascist parties. I mean, this is shocking, right? I mean, Turkey is the world's leading jailer of journalists, something that, you know, Trump advocated aggressively, as does much of the Republican Party. Poland's political party regularly threatens to put judges in jail when they don't rule the way that the party wants. In Hungary, they scapegoat immigrants as a strategy to gain and grow political power. And, you know, Orban in Hungary is probably the best example of this. You know, when he took over Fidesz back in 2010, this political party, it was sort of like the GOP. It was a regular conservative party. And then he started campaigning on Christian purity, restoring Christian purity to Hungary, and his slogan was making Hungary great again. This was 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And his rallies drew tens of thousands of people. His major campaign promise was building a wall across the southern part of Hungary to keep out Syrian refugees. He, by the way, kept that promise. He built that wall. He altered the nation's constitution so he could gerrymander places so that he'd always win elections. He's packed the courts so completely, sort of like Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump putting 270 people in our federal courts. He's packed the courts so completely that he never loses cases anymore. His party has rewritten textbooks to talk about essentially, the phrase, refugees entering the country are a threat because it can be problematic for different cultures to coexist. And then he started locking up refugee children in cages. When the Hungarian Helsinki Committee complained about the children in cages, he said, well, we have to do that because they pose a security risk and endanger the continent's Christian culture and identity. See, he's just saying out loud what the Trumpkins and the Republicans are kind of saying in code. And 5 years to the week before American Nazis rallied in Charlottesville, a bunch of guys in Hungary marched down to the Roma community, the people that used to be called gypsies. Now it's kind of a slur, but if you're not familiar with the word Roma, that's who it was. And after the head of his party had called them animals and vermin. And so it was like a Charlottesville kind of rally, and they, you know, with torches saying, we will burn your houses down. So how did this happen in the United States? Well, the first step was in 76 and 78 when a new Republican majority, thanks to Richard Nixon on the Supreme Court, ruled that if billionaires or corporations want to own politicians, want to throw money into the political sphere, that's not corruption, which is what we used to call it, or bribery, which is what we used to call it. That is really just free speech. It's not money. It's free speech. First Amendment protected free speech. And so, here we go, and now you've got billionaire networks that are actually, like the Koch network is actually bigger than the Republican Party. And they do not want their taxes raised to pay for your social programs. The second step was in the 90s when Newt Gingrich arrived in D.C. with his contract on America, which boiled down to basically tax cuts and deregulation. The third step was Donald Trump, just saying now out loud what Nixon and Reagan and both Bushes, with the Willie Horton ads and everything else, were saying, that the Republican Party post-1965 is now officially the party of white supremacy. Democratic Party left that behind in 65. And then the fourth step is the classic fascist strategy. It's called the big lie. Mussolini's big lie was that Italy got screwed at the end of World War I, that they really didn't lose. That was Hitler's first big lie, too, or his big lie throughout the thing was that Germany had been stabbed in the back, was his phrase. Stabbed in the back by socialists and Jews who had negotiated the end of World War I. And they stabbed, Hitler went with this. And then Trump came along with his big lie, which is that he actually won the 2020 election, which he did not. He lost it. And the biggest part of his big lie is that there was this massive voter fraud, especially in black cities like Detroit, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Atlanta. And so now you've got a Republican Party that is so completely controlled by billionaires who don't want their taxes to go up that even really popular programs like COVID relief, they are 100% opposed to. You've got a Republican Party that has now embraced white supremacy, and you've got now, Tucker Carlson pitching the same thing on Fox News. He doubled down last night on his whole great replacement theory that, anonymous forces are trying to, well, this is not his words but mine, but are trying to replace white people in America. Right. I'm of the opinion that the Republican Party needs to either be torn down and rebuilt from the bottom up by the never-Trumpers. There's still some Republicans out there. Or it needs to be banned, purged, done away with. And if it's purged, we can't let them continue their big lie about election fraud, like the South continued their lost cause.